Hello and welcome to episode 123 of Kaiju Curry House, the fortnightly show that gives you a healthy dose of kaiju goodness every other Monday. I'm Paul, joined today by both Alex and Connor to discuss the film Deep Rising, the 1998 smash hit. Before we get into that, Connor, what have kaiju been up to?
Well, Paul, so I promised myself no more vinyl figures. I will not buy any more vinyl figures.
No?
And then just the other day, in celebration of Megalon's 50th coming up, they decided to release a limited edition figure on the Godzilla store, which is of Godzilla 1973. And because you can now buy these things internationally now through Buy, I figured might as well just buy it. That was roughly what, £33 just to order it, and we'll have to wait until it actually gets to the depot pretty much before they can then send it to the UK. So God knows how much that's going to cost. Probably not a lot, probably like £6 or something, give or take. But what I really like about it is very rare, and this is something I've noticed, that we have very few Godzilla figures that have a closed mouth. I've noticed, and the new 73 Godzilla figure actually does have a closed mouth. So I don't know, maybe they just got lazy, want to sculpt teeth that day. That could be it. But yeah. Other than that, so I've had a bit of bad luck as of late, or I wouldn't say this, but over the last year and a bit, I'd say. And that is, I bought a model a while back, right, of, you know how I like my miniature models, folks, those little tiny figures, which worries people, like how something that small, but the trick is you use magnifying glasses. So, but one of these figures was a pewter Frankenstein versus Baragon set, right? And this set has given me so much grief. It's just unbelievable. There's so much bad luck with this set, right? So to begin with, it's a little metal kit. In fact, I've got it right here just to give you perspective. Like, it's like holding eggshells, this thing, for a start. No, you can't even see it. Well, you can see
so that's about, what, 2-3 inches? It's pretty small.
Pretty much, yeah. Yeah, I don't pick this thing up. I'll tell you why in a second. So the first time I got it, I assembled it together. It was on its own base that came with the set. And I was busy just airbrushing in the shed, just priming it, just so that I can apply paint on it later, right? Now, the way that you usually hold miniatures up is that usually you put them on something like maybe like a wine bottle cap or something like that, held by blue tack usually, just because they're so small, so you can paint at all angles, right? This thing's too top heavy because this is two metal figures, right? Basically. And what happened was, because Baragon was so fat and heavy, it snapped off, right? It fell on the floor, and there went Baragon's ear. Never saw it again, right? So it was like, I spent 60 quid on this little figure, and the ear's just gone just like that. So, fairly recently, I'm just going through my pile of shame, which is what model painters call just unpainted kits, just the pile of shame, right? I see it. I think, you know what? I'm going to strip this. I'm going to strip the paint. I'm going to try again. I'm never giving up on this, right? So I base it, I paint it, and it's all going well, right? I even got these new sticky pads so that it's more secure when painting it, right? When I'm basically moving about, because it's better than blue tack. Then I moved on to oils, because I like to highlight and shade figures using oil paints. But what you need to thin oils, of course, is spirits, pretty much. So basically like white spirit. So apply a wash to the model, just basically to go into all the recesses and all that, so you get like sort of like shadow and such. It drips down onto the sticky pad, and history it repeats itself. It repeats itself, and it falls off again. And this time, it snapped off at Frankenstein's hands. So I'm pretty much he's forever just gonna have just these glue stumps on his hands, and I'm just.
Are you throwing it? Are you throwing in the towel now? Is that it?
Well, luckily, I'd actually finished painting it, but it's just unfortunate that the hands will forever have this metal seam going across it, and it just. Oh, God. So, if anyone wants to buy some old metal Bandai miniature kits of Godzilla, fair be warned, they cost a lot of money and it's not worth the price. So,
Yeah.
Oh man,
I didn't realize they made model kits, like metal ones.
Yeah, they're like made in the 90s and such. They did a whole range of, I can't remember what, I think it's Wave Model, I think they're called. I think that's the line. I've got an Anguirus here as well. Already
So if it's metal, it's not like you're going to be building the model kit, I take it. You just paint it?
There is some assembly required. So with metal kits in particular, especially with like tails and arms and all that, you need to drill holes in it and stick in a pin pretty much so that they don't fall off. Otherwise, they just snap pretty much.
Okay.
That didn't stop the Frankenstein model from snapping after putting the pins in it. It's like, yeah. They also made the lead as well, so it's probably not healthy for me as well. Come to think of it,
A bit of lead.
Aside the white spirit they use to thin the oil paints and all that, yeah, it's like I'm being very healthy, folks.
Yeah.
But they did a whole line of it from like just the show up to the Heisei era. I think they only did. I think the 91 Godzilla and Mecha King Ghidorah, I think, with the Heisei series, but I might be wrong. But they usually just pop up once a blue moon on eBay. I've seen a Megalon one recently. This is like the third episode in a row we've mentioned Megalon, for God's sake. Yeah. But anyways, that's what I've been up to, I suppose. Just been very disappointed.
Yeah.
Alex, what have Kaiju been up to?
Well, thank you for asking. Quite a bit. If you remember, folks, in the last episode, I spoke about pre-ordering through whereby the X Plus Yuji Sakai, and it was the awakening form of Shin Godzilla with kind of the glowing purple. And that was purely kind of like an impulse / I suppose, kind of like, how can I put it? Reclaiming what feels like a bad decision because I sold one of my Yuji Sakai figures. So I sold a Shin Godzilla, so I feel like I'm buying it back in just a slightly different version. But I've kind of carried on with the buying, which don't judge me, folks. And there was a series of CCPs that I had my eye on, and I bought them, or rather pre-ordered them through Awesome Collector, because gotta love that payment plan, folks. And I've got myself the Hedorah, Gigan, and then the Godzilla 1954. I think what would be nice, actually, folks, is when we post this episode, maybe post some of the pictures of what we've been talking about as well, so people can kind of a bit of context. That might be nice.
Yeah,
we could do that. So that's been good. I wanted to ask you, Connor, kind of related to ordering, when does the pre-order close for the Godzilla store for that Megalon closed mouth?
I'm not sure. I know that it's released, I believe, on the 29th of July. So I think just pre-order before then, I'd assume.
Yeah.
I doubt they'll have a lot in stock because they did it with like the Gigan Rex show that came out.
And I think what strikes me, sorry to interrupt, what strikes me about kind of those figures is that for the 1973 Godzilla vs. Megalon, for the 50th anniversary, you've got the three. So there's a Jet Jaguar, there's the closed mouth Godzilla, and you've got Megalon, God bless him. And you can have them together as a set, which is quite cool. but it just puts it in perspective because, as you say, they're around £30 each. Well, okay, that's £90 for three of them, but it's for three. That's a full set. You know, that's a collector's item, in my opinion. So yeah, I've certainly kept my eye on those. Whether or not I'll go for them, it just depends. There's only so much you can buy. I was meeting up with a friend the other day and we were talking about movies that we play for our other halves, because I'm sure you know, listeners, not everyone shares our love of this genre. So I was carefully trying to get some ideas off a friend of what can I play for my beloved other half. And he said to me, why not play Attack the Block? And I was looking through our episodes and I know that you reviewed it a little while back. And I thought, you know what? It is actually a good romp. It's good fun. And I feel like it's quite kaiju light, isn't it? It's not sort of like a classic giant monster movie. And there's enough kind of like, I suppose, urban action. And it feels quite accessible as a film. What are your thoughts on it, kind of in terms of like as an introduction film, guys?
Yeah, I mean, as you say, it's not a giant monster attacking, is it? It's
No, it's
much more grounded, but quite light-hearted.
Yes.
It's just the language barrier I found was the difficult thing, because they're all talking like Cockney, and it's just like what they say.
I looked it up. Yeah, it's multicultural London English because Cockney's dying out as an accent now. It's kind of it's the modern kind of London accent that loads of kids kind of almost assume to sound more London and multicultural. But yeah, so I played that and that went down well. I stress kind of playing that for my other half who's not kind of a monster movie nerd, and that worked really well. Then last but not least, because my daughter will kill me if I don't mention it, it was indeed Father's Day, and she got me this wonderful shirt here, which I'm not going to shout too much about it, but yes, she picked that out, and we've got Son of Godzilla, Minya on Godzilla's back. And I love that film because Godzilla is just a tired dad who I think we can all relate to.
Yeah.
Paul, what have Kaiju been up to?
Okay, so I've watched a few more episodes of Ultraman Season 3 on Netflix, final season. It's still stronger than Season 2, story-wise, but I'm equally disappointed that the villain is still very much a humanoid. It's just like, it seems to be the battles this time have been a female Ultraman, but with like an energy sword. It's just like,
yeah, that's the
have
thing
some
with
cool
Ultraman,
aliens in it, please.
Even the live action series, most of Ultraman's nemesises are somehow like humanoid, I guess.
Yeah,
like the Kaiju are one thing, but
I'd assume though that like in the olden days that was more of a budgetary thing where it was a man in a suit. Now they've got an anime, they can go wild with their imagination and create whatever alien they want. And like now we'll just have like a robot.
They could also make Ultraman go giant, but they never do that. It's a shame, really, isn't it?
in the intro, you see giant Ultraman and a giant alien. So it's like I don't know if that's how the season's going to end. But he does get big.
Are you enjoying your venture into Ultraman? Because I know that for a long time, you and I together, Paul, were kind of like, it's a huge world and neither of us had really experienced it. I'm yet to go into it. Do you rate the universe?
I still haven't gone into the live action side of things, but I'm happy with the Netflix anime. I think season 1 I thought was great. Season 2 was quite weak. In fact, season 1 and 3 have more episodes than season 2. So it kind of felt like season 2 was a bit of like a rush or a half job. But definitely, if you've got Netflix, give it a try, because I really like the suit design and I like the story and everything. It seems good.
And who knows, Paul? Maybe one Christmas you might find an Ultraman DVD in your stocking. Who knows?
Who knows? Who knows what Santa will bring me this year? Yeah. It does make me want the model of Ultraman, the Netflix version, because I think it's very cool. It reminds me, it's like I know it's very Iron Man, but it's it's just a lot more modern. It does looks good.
I think it's always good to be optimistic and have aspirations for Christmas, isn't it? Close mouth, Godzilla.
And of course, as you might remember, we discussed Mighty Max on the previous episode, and I said I would watch an episode before the next recording, and I have. So I watched the first episode.
Go on. How was
Mighty
it?
Max. Wow. That was a 90s show, wasn't it?
Do you mean like 90s show Biker Mice from Mars? Kind of like this is 90s and awesome, or is it like a whoa, this is 90s?
No, it's awesome.
Good.
It was, yeah. I mean, like the soundtrack's like quite a good, like heavy metal.
Oh
rock.
yeah, all of
Yeah.
those shows had really heavy riffs.
Yeah, and Max is obviously he's got all the attitude and stuff, and the creatures are. I mean, like this Skullmaster, the bad guy, he's like, "Bring me Mighty Max so I can eat his brains." It's like, yeah, go for it, because you know that's what kids obviously want to hear. This villain, and he said, "No, actually, what else?" He said, "Oh, I'm going to suck the marrow from your bones." Like, jeez, you know,
You'd never get that now, would you?
no, that would not be allowed now. It's
I
like,
also love how Skullmaster is basically like just a TV kids show version of Skeletor. That's
Yes.
all he is.
but I mean, Skeletor.
Well, Skeletor's comes
was
with
a
a good
kids
show.
show, but it's
That's
like,
true. Yes, I suppose so. Yeah.
he's like a much more evil version.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was. I enjoyed watching it. It was good fun. It's ridiculous. So, you know, he's at home. A parcel arrives, and he's in his bedroom. Which, by the way, he's got like 5 TVs in his room and a neon sign. So that's great. And then the doorbell rings, which sets off an alarm in his room because he's got that wired up. So he then goes to his window and speaks down like the drain pipe, and it carries his voice down to the parcel guy, and the parcel guy's like, "Whoa, special delivery guy!" You're like, "Okay, yeah, this is really cool." And there's a parcel. He's got a box, like an Egyptian statue, and he can read, you know, Egyptian hieroglyphs because his mum's like this architect, archaeologist.
Archaeologist, yeah.
Of course, so he knows. He's a teenager, but he can read all the hieroglyphs. And it says like Mighty Max, so he's like, "Oh my god!" Drops it, and there's a baseball cap inside, which he puts on, and then suddenly Skullmaster is aware that he exists. Skullmaster is apparently trapped somewhere like in the center of the earth in all this lava pits, but he can send his minions to go get Max, but he himself can't leave. I don't know why this all powerful guy. Yeah, but you know, Max is the chosen one, and he's going to destroy Skullmaster, and it's like, is he?
When did Mighty Max come out?
I know it was 90s. I don't know the year.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say I knew it was 90s. It's just thinking that like the baseball cap on a little kid.
Yeah,
it's so classically 90s, isn't it? Like Donkey Kong Country with Diddy Kong. Like, how do you know that Diddy Kong's cool? He's got a red cap.
He's got a cap
and he plays guitar
or something, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, you know, he's down with the kids, even though he is a kid. But like, how do you know he's cool? He's got a baseball cap.
Yeah,
of course. When you're a kid and try that in real life, it turns out, oh, you're not cool. Oh no.
Okay,
also,
Max, 93 to 95.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's kind of that's the. I mean, 1995 was Donkey Kong Country, so there's a case here that they're part of the same cinematic universe.
Mighty Max, Donkey Kong Country, multiverse cinematic, you know, stuff. Yeah,
absolutely. And I think that thinking beyond that, other characters that wear caps that are little kids that know far too much. Ryder from Paw Patrol, you know, Ryder
he saves the day.
He saves the day, and like that kid is kind of like he knows a lot. Why isn't he in school? Why has he not got an education? Doesn't matter. He looks after his pups.
Well, apparently there is no emergency. Paw Patrol.
Well, there's no emergency services at Adventure Bay, so this poor kid and his pups have to like save all the adults. It's crazy.
Yeah. Because he's a neo-libertarian, because he's not about state control. He's all about private, you know, self-made men.
Oh, God.
Oh, dear. Right. On that note, I think we should take a quick break and then come back to discuss Deep Rising.
Hello and welcome back to episode 123 of Kaiju Curry House. My name's Alex. I'm joined by my friends Paul and Connor, and we are discussing Deep Rising after the sad loss on the 12th of June this year of Treat Williams. So Deep Rising, 1990 year. It's going to be a funny episode, folks, because whilst a wonderful actor Treat Williams was, Deep Rising is a funny old film, isn't it? Like, it does not take itself seriously. Now, as I understand it, Connor, you have not seen this film.
No, I was very ill prepared for this episode. So
He was, which is why his background so fabulously reflects the film that we are reviewing. But Connor,
oops, haven't seen it. There you go.
there we go. There's the moment. So yeah, look, feel free to kind of shoot questions our way. Paul, why don't you kind of like start off telling us about this film? You know, it was made in 1998, directed by Stephen Sommers.
Yes,
What was it
Stephen
about?
Sommers, who went
Yeah.
on, or I don't know if he went on to do, but he did The Mummy and
Yeah, he
Van
went on to
Helsing
a year later.
yeah, so I mean, good director there, and we got
I
some.
will say, Van Helsing is probably a very underrated film of his. Doesn't get enough credit. But anyway, Deep Rising, let's go.
And Deep Rising, I'd say probably doesn't get enough credit as well. It's overlooked, isn't it? It's one of those films that came out and underperformed at the box office. I'm trying to think what else came out around this time. Obviously, Godzilla '98 came out in '98, so there was that. Might have been up against, at least
I
for.
feel like you had a lot of. I mean, I'd need to check my years, but you have a lot of kind of films in the late 90s that were absolute smash hits at the box office, and I feel like there would have been a lot of pressure to kind of perform.
Yeah,
Like I don't know what was the date for Armageddon, Deep Impact, just kind of like films all in those late kind of 90s that did really, really well. But yeah,
I
looking
think
at
Titanic was doing really well at the time as well.
right, you know, in terms of kind of how can you put it, sort of like Atlantic, big ocean kind of adventure movies. I tried summing it up in a sentence. Paul, see how this sounds.
Okay.
Millionaire pleasure ship attacked by underwater kaiju. Meanwhile, a gang of terrorists, come pirates, use a smuggler's boat to transport missiles.
Okay. That's already a 90s movie plot. So
it's Die Hard crossed with Alien on a boat.
Yeah. But there's element of aliens because you've got the pleasure ship kind of boat, which is this like super rich, super luxurious cruise ship that's traveling out, and like it's got the ridiculous speech from the guy who owns this ship where he's saying, you know, like, welcome to all of you. You are the most beautiful, the most rich. And then a couple of minutes later, they promptly get attacked. And then you never see those characters again. They're all wiped out. But then alongside that, I think the far more interesting element of it, and kill me for saying this, folks, I think even more interesting than the kaiju attack is the gang of kind of the terrorists, because they're just such a wacky bunch of characters. How would you sum up this film, Paul?
I mean, I don't know if I'm that fussed about the terrorists, to be honest.
Oh,
I feel like they played their part. You know, they're trying to get onto this ship. They're trying to sink this ship to get some insurance money because they're in cahoots with the guy who owns the ship. Shocker.
oh,
because he's so rich that he wants to make more money by sinking his ship and claiming the insurance money.
mm-hmm.
Are these like terrorists, like the wacky terrorists, like you see in like films like Die Hard or like The Crow, that sort of thing? Or
Crow.
It's not like slapstick comedy. It is.
It's almost slapstick. I think a good comparison I like that would be to The Crow, where you kind of got this gang of underground kind of misfits, and they're more metal than metal. They're more misogynistic and evil than could possibly be. And the caricatures of themselves, aren't they, Paul?
Yeah.
Like they're almost so unlikable that you like them because they're really hamming up with the acting of kind of they're terrible people, and you know that you need they are the bad guys, folks. You must know that they're bad guys. Like there's one part. I'm just checking my notes. There's one part where there's a character called Mamuli, played by Cliff Curtis, and he basically talks about how he's on this Olympic adventure to sleep with every woman from every single country. And at one point, he's like, I've never had a Korean before. And it's like, okay, we get that you're the bad guy, misogynist. Like, he really layers it on. And then just before he's killed, he goes to stare at these posters of topless women. He's like, even though people are getting like... He's like, which one of you ladies is going to keep me warm whilst people are dying? So I feel like, to its credit, the film knows that it's nonsense, and I kind of appreciate that, because when I watched this film about 4 years ago, I don't know what it was. I just possibly wasn't in the mood, and I think I set out for a more serious kind of venture, and this film is not that. But yeah, it's a very, very silly film. I keep interrupting Paul. Sorry.
I can't remember what I was saying. What do you think about Joey? I love Joey. He's the
Yeah, yeah.
he's the engineer of the. I mean, they're all. I say bad. They're all bad guys, aren't they? He's a smuggler. The lead
Yes.
character, Sir
Mhm.
Treat Williams is not necessarily a good guy. He's still, yeah, I suppose he's like a Han Solo-y type, where he is not the bad guy, but he's not necessarily good. He's helping these terrorists. He just doesn't know what they're doing. He's just like, you give me enough
Yeah.
money, I won't ask any questions. And
Well, he
then,
has that slogan, doesn't he, of kind of
yeah, I'm
like
trying to think.
don't know, don't care. It's not quite
The
Yeah,
that.
lovable rogue. There you go.
yeah,
But yeah,
he is
he's
a
an
lovable
absolute
rogue,
archetypical lovable
load of
rogue.
charisma, and Joey, his shipmate, is investigating. Yeah, he's snooping around, finds out they've got missiles, and then gets nearly kicked to death by the bad guys.
Oh, that part, yeah. So
That was not nice.
no, so that character, it's the same actor, Joey Pantucci, who played the character in The Mummy, the one who kind of like famously dies at the end, who kind of double crosses his friends, and is that
Oh
awesome
yeah.
where the mummy kind of comes towards him, he gets out every single religious symbol, desperately to save him. Yeah, so that guy, like, similarly exaggerated acting in this film, I feel, but I put like a star next to him because I felt like he's a great character. But he goes downstairs, he's snooping around as kind of the grease monkey mechanic with like his greasy hair and his little cap, and then he finds all of these huge rocket launchers, and then he gets dragged off. And then 6 of these pirates just basically stomp him and kick his face in. You think, he's going to be killed.
Yeah.
And then he kind of gets pulled up and he just has to have like a couple of stitches in his eye. And you're like,
Fine.
no.
They were just kidding. They were just kidding.
Yeah.
That would have killed him because like they punched the crap out of him. Yeah, but
Yeah, he got a lot of abuse.
he got a lot of abuse.
Bless him.
But yeah, so what, you're not a fan of the pirates?
It's not that I'm not a fan of them. As you say, they're so stereotypical that I don't necessarily care about them at all, but they serve their purpose absolutely fine.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think they do serve their purpose. I kind of wrote down on this film when I was rewatching it for the first time in a while. When I watched it last night, I wrote down very dumb plot that's carried by a large cast who each have quick one-liners.
Yeah.
Like there's a big cast in it, and everyone seems to get a couple of lines before they each die. And it's very, very fast paced. I mean, there's one part where just after on this big pleasure cruise ship, they realize it's something in the water. I've got the quote here. The captain says, "What is it?" And he replies, "I don't know, sir, but whatever it is, it's big." And it's like, wow.
Oh no. That's like, I don't know, that has that line been said like God
I
knows how
imagine,
many
yes,
times
it's
in,
been
like,
said lots of times.
lots of
A few
movies.
times, I think. Yeah. So yes, for me, kind of the one-liners are hilarious. I've already mentioned Mamuli, but it's interesting because there's loads of actors who, when I watched the film again, I was like, I've seen them before. So like that guy, Cliff Curtis, he's in the Meg. Possibly not for very much of the film, but there's another kaiju movie. So he's the New Zealand the Maori actor, the one who's kind of a bit pervy that looks at the post of the ladies. Yes, it's him.
Oh, he plays Mac in the film, who's the best character in the book series, which he's nothing like that character.
Oh.
Travesty. Jimon Hansu, I'm not sure how to pronounce his name. He plays a character called Vivo, and that same actor from Benin, he was in Gladiator as one of the main characters' kind of friends. So, like, African actor. Yeah, do you know, when I was thinking about this last night, Paul, what struck me is you've got like a really, really diverse cast of
Yeah.
actors. Just to take like a moment on this, you've got like people from New Zealand, Australia, you've got a chap from Benin, you've got Una Damon, who's from South Korea. You've got the token English guy. You've got the very wonderful Janssen from the Netherlands, who she was massive during those years because it's she played who was it in X-Men?
She was Jean Grey in
It was
X-Men.
Jean Grey, yeah,
Yeah,
Phoenix.
so it's like
And
quite a
then,
big character.
yeah, like I feel like she had about 10 years of kind of the same type of character, just like, very beautiful, very charismatic, played she also played Xenia on a top in GoldenEye, if I remember rightly. Do you remember that fantastic character?
Nope.
GoldenEye?
I actually haven't seen GoldenEye. I've only played the game GoldenEye.
I don't even remember in GoldenEye, but
I'm going to fact check myself.
she probably
Kind of
was. I'm sure she was in the film. If you say she was in the film,
no, but I'm routinely full of rubbish. So
I have not seen GoldenEye probably since it came out in the 90s, which would make sense. So she was the Bond girl, as it were, was she in that film?
Yeah, no, right, okay, no, I'm not full of nonsense. I would strain to call her the Bond girl in GoldenEye because she plays the villain. She played.
Okay.
So in 1995, just a couple of years before Deep Rising, she played Xenia on a top, which is, like it is what it is. It was a very different time. And and she killed characters with her legs, with her thighs, and
yes, brilliant.
Yeah. Wow. So that actress that I'm referring to, that's Famke Janssen, and she's great. Yeah, I mean,
absolutely. And so she is she's already on the ship and she is trying to steal from the rich people. So she's another anti-hero, as it were. So we've got two main characters, both anti-heroes.
Yeah.
I'd say a very diverse cast. It's ticking all the boxes, isn't it? On paper, this should be amazing.
And do you know there's another character in it that's worth mentioning? The main kind of leader of these terrorists. It's a Native American actor called let's see if I can pronounce his name right. It's Wes Studi, but he played the main villain in Last of the Mohicans.
Okay,
yeah.
If either of you have seen Last of the Mohicans,
I have not.
I've heard of it. I've never seen it.
But I do know of it. Yeah.
It's by no means a kaiju movie in any way, shape, or form.
We're very cultured here. It's Kaiju Curry House. Yeah.
But go out and watch Last of the Mohicans, Paul, because it's a really, really good film. But yeah, he plays like a really sinister villain in that film. But yeah, it just strikes me, as you say, like on the face of it, why would this film not work? Because you've got very diverse cast, you've got hilarious one-liners, you've got a ridiculous plot line, and you've got a budget of $45 million. Box office, 11 million.
Oof. Yeah, not so good.
No.
And the effects aren't bad at all.
No. Actually, if I remember rightly, I'd say that the special effects, particularly on the monster, are pretty good.
Yeah. Oh, I do like the creature.
Yeah, I do. Let's talk about the creature a bit more.
I'm very interested in what the creature is. What is the creature?
Well, the creature, a lot of the time, you're just seeing something under the water. You might not necessarily see what's grabbing the people. There's just something there. So you could think it's going to be low budget, but then you start to see it, and it's this beautiful tentacle that comes out and then sort of opens up, much like the dog face in The Thing, opens up and reveals a load of teeth and will eat you.
It's sea tremors. There you go.
Your tremors, yeah, much like a graboid's tongue.
Tremors.
Yeah, actually, that's probably a better analogy. That it's the tongue of the graboid that you see a lot of until the end, where you see the huge beast. But it's all
there's a bit of great bit of cartoon as well from Return of the Jedi. It's kind of
Yeah.
just like, yeah, thing with tentacles in the water.
Okay.
But I mean, there's a scene. They're all trapped in. Well, I think they've come off the elevator and they're sort of trapped, and but the walls start trampling in as this thing's trying to get to them. The walls are starting to creep in, and they're just standing there shooting their machine guns, obviously to no avail. But it's all so that's obviously quite a practical effect there. Someone's physically crushing the walls in there. So both practical and visual effects are all really strong. There's nothing. I mean, it's like it's an A-star budget with a B movie storyline and a huge host of actors and actresses that are top of their game. Again, it sounds like it should be amazing, but it's just something's not right, and I can't put my finger on why.
To be fair, it's like by the sounds of things, that's the best way to approach modern special effects. I think if you can integrate both CGI and live action, then that's basically a good recipe, I guess. Compared to say if it was just completely CGI, I suppose. It's nice to see something actually there happening, I guess.
Yeah.
I've just brought up Rotten Tomatoes and a couple of other reviews just on the reception on Wikipedia just to read, because I am a bit baffled why it did so badly. I'm going to have a read of this for you now.
Okay.
So Rotten Tomatoes gives it a score of 32%, average of 4.2 out of 10. The general consensus was that its fleeting glimpses of creature feature mayhem are certainly dumb fun, which is kind of what I said, but deep rising cribs from far too many better movies to stand on its own. Roger Ebert, of course, legend as a film critic, he included it in his most hated list.
Well, we all can't.
Wow, that's harsh.
Now, I rate Roger Ebert. I think he's a fantastic and was a fantastic critic. He called the film essentially an alien clone with a fresh paint job.
Yeah.
Variety's Leonard Clady said the film is an old-fashioned B-movie with A-budget special effects. Wow.
Yeah.
Well,
exactly. Yeah. These aren't bad things.
I would say that as a positive comment, not a bad comment.
But the quality sheen can't disguise the cheap thrills hokum. Shall I keep reading?
Go ahead.
Yeah, go for it.
So, Ty Burr, writing for the Entertainment Weekly, called the film a tightly written, often howlingly funny aliens knockoff in its portrayal of tough men and tougher women under pressure. That's a bit nicer. Favorably recalls the work of Howard Hawks. I don't know who that is.
He's the guy that directed The Thing from Another World.
Thank you. There we go. Cheers for that. Giving it a grade of B minus. Now, I would give it a B minus.
That seems a fairer review, doesn't it?
I would not say that this is an amazing film. I don't think it's an amazing film at all. But I think that it's better than average. And like when I rewatched it, I had fun. I wasn't at the edge of my seat. I didn't kind of come away being like, wow, this is stunning. But it was like, that was good fun. Bloody Disgusting wrote, excellent cast, state-of-the-art special effects, terrific acting. This is a movie that should not be missed. Okay, so more favorable. And it's later gone on to become a cult classic.
There we go.
Yeah.
That seems to be a pattern with like movies that seem to bomb at the box office, especially like monster movies.
Definitely. And director Stephen Sommers, sorry to interrupt there, just very quickly. Director Stephen Sommers said it didn't do a ton of business, but it has a very fervent following.
Okay.
Go on, Connor. What are you going to say? Sorry.
What was I going to say? That's a good question. I was just saying, like you could say, like films like I don't know, like The Thing, for instance. That was another movie that did poorly at the box office, believe it or not. But has since become a cult classic, I suppose. Like as soon as it was released on like VHS and all that. Which, by the sounds of things, it seems like Deep Rising did the same thing, I suppose.
And in 2007, it was re-released on DVD and Blu-ray. The Blu-ray double feature was released with another Mill Creek Entertainment movie called Puppet Masters.
This wouldn't happen to be Puppet Masters, like the Full Moon films with Puppet Master.
Like the killer, like Blade and like all of those little killer puppets. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do you know Puppet Master, Paul?
No, name rings a bell, but I haven't seen it.
See, you're a horror man, so I would have thought.
Yeah, I feel like I should have seen this.
Yeah, it's almost like if Trauma had a budget. Put it that way. That's the best way to describe the Puppet Master films.
But that's a good comparison. Yeah. Super quick, kind of like demonic sort of like Hellraiser-esque kind of like thing awakens these kind of things, but rather than Cenobites, it's basically these little puppets. And they're actual puppet sized, and they each have a unique way of killing people. So like one of them has a drill in his head, one of them has a torch, another one like a blowtorch, one of them pukes up leeches.
Yeah, beautiful. That's my favorite one because I'm disgusting.
The leech woman, and like it's totally over the top, and I swear they've had like 17 films since, and they've just kind of gone worse and worse and worse.
There's one where there's like a cowboy puppet and it's got like 6 arms and like it's literally a 6-shooter. So
well, I've been Googling the film for some facts, and it seems that Harrison Ford was attached to play the lead role at one point.
Oh wow, okay.
And then dropped out.
There's your Han Solo comparison.
There's Han Solo, definitely.
Yeah. So I mean, he would have perfectly, played that role, but he was. It seems, I don't know if he changed his mind, but it's when he dropped out, the studio like drastically cut the budget because I guess
did Air Force One come out in the same year? I'm wondering because I'd imagine that came out around that time.
Well, it also turns out that this film was delayed by over a year because of the special effects, like how long it took to make them, like do all those visual effects back in the day.
So it sounds like a lot of money was poured into special effects. It didn't quite deliver. Yeah. Okay, well, let's take our second break and then let's return to kind of wrap this up.
Welcome back to Kaiju Curry House, episode 123. Now, you mentioned the monster, right? How big is this creature? Like, is it like a massive creature, or is it just like a regular sized creature? Or
it's huge, but its tentacles are more people size, so it can. I take it it's 10. I mean, does it actually? Good question. These tentacles, do they come off the creature because they're chasing them everywhere? I'm assuming they must do, or they're just really, really long. I'm assuming there's just lots of different creatures, or lots of little creatures that.
I mean, you've kind of come back to a question that a lot of people had about the Stephen King adaptation movie, The Mist. Have you both seen this?
Yeah, The Mist.
Okay, so like The Mist is one of my favorite horror movies, but I would argue that it is absolutely 100% a kaiju movie.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, especially with like just the various sizes of creatures, especially when they're driving away at the end and you see that massive thing just walking.
Exactly, great. Yeah. Okay, so we're on the same page for that. So in The Mist, got multiple monsters, and I promise I am going somewhere with this, guys, because you've got the Behemoth, like the absolutely largest thing that's just basically like a walking dinosaur. You've got the Arachne lobster, which is some kind of like wandering thing with these huge scythes that just seems to kind of just be this thing about the size of maybe like 3-story building, maybe, that you only see twice. You've got these little spider things that kind of shoot webs at people, fairly generic, and kind of jump on people and eat them. And then you've got the little kind of pterodactyl-y things, you remember them, that and they attack people.
Mhm.
The little insects that jab people, and then like that woman has their it's like her face swells up. They're pretty gnarly. But then randomly, you've got that part where there's the guy from American Pie, I've forgotten his name, who gets attacked by a tentacle under a garage door. Do you know who I mean?
Yeah, and he gets ripped to shreds from it.
Shumanator, or whatever he's
Yeah.
called.
Yeah.
Yeah, him. But like the tentacle comes out and pulls him and then rips him out, and then like you don't see him ever again. But it's like, what do those tentacles belong to? What are they attached to? Because you don't see any monster through the rest of the film that has tentacles attached to it.
So
Does that make any sense?
yeah, as to the mystery, I guess. So you're saying it's basically the same with this creature in this film, then that
Yeah, because there's several points when like various like sort of pirate, villain, terrorist characters, they're getting picked off, aren't they, by the tentacles, Paul? And it's not quite clear early on what the tentacles attached to. It's almost just a device to kind of like
Yeah.
and then pull them under. And then like, you get the kind of the generic sort of the person gets pulled and then they get knocked around, bam, hit on the head, fall under, and then splatter of blood out the water. It's very kind of obvious.
Yeah,
but it's not so
speaking of
late.
which,
Yeah.
you say about a splatter of blood. There's a scene, isn't there, like where there's just corpses or there's just blood and bones.
Yeah.
As we didn't mention how gory this film really is. It is an R-rated, which probably didn't help the box office. It's an R-rated film, and there is.
I think possibly
everywhere.
delayed mentioning that it's R-rated because it's so silly that it's easy to kind of forget that, because like the first kill of the film, can you remember it, Paul? What's the first kill of the movie?
I'm trying to think. The first kill isn't that. I feel like that's when they've split up to power something on or something. Is it not?
It's a woman on a toilet.
Oh, it is, isn't it? Yeah, she goes there to hide.
Yeah, it's after that guy says, well, I don't know what it is, whatever it is, it's big. Bam, the boat gets hit. Everyone screams, runs away, and this woman runs into the bathroom, locks the door, and sits on a toilet. And then suddenly, and then gets pulled into the toilet.
That sounds like something out of Evil Dead, almost. Just
exactly, because if I had to speculate, maybe you're onto something with this, Paul, in terms of why he didn't win. Because there are times when it's like, I can't quite work out what the tone of the film wants to be, because that kind of moment with the splatter of blood and then the woman's pulled down a toilet, you're like, all right, okay, this is a very silly film. But then there's other moments where, like, one of the African characters is waiting at this door, and as these doors open, suddenly out of nowhere, this person just slams an axe into his head and then just kills him. And like, the axe goes into his skull properly, doesn't it, Paul?
Oh, yeah. He did a good job.
But like it's almost like a jump scare, but you're kind of like, what on earth just happened? There's just moments that are really quick and unexpected with like quite extreme violence.
Is this like part of the plot as well, or is this just a random thing that happens in the film? Like a guy gets an axe to his head.
No, there's some people hiding. Like the
survivors are hiding. It's the owners of the boat. Once it's been attacked, they basically go into hiding on the ship and kind of just sort of like rally in, lock down the hatches, and wait. And then the terrorists arrive and they're trying to basically look around, and they open a door and they're waiting and they're like, who is it? Who is it? So it's an odd film where there's just moments where you're like, that was a bit more violent than it needed to be. I didn't expect that to happen.
Well, yeah. So it was R-rated. It was on the back of, or around the same time of, Titanic, which is the biggest film. Yeah, well, it's in the top 3 highest grossing films ever. It took over a year to get the special effects done, so it was out of when they originally wanted it. They had to push it back because it was around the same time of Con Air and Starship Troopers coming out. and then Godzilla's coming out later in the year. So it's like all these huge films, and this just if it had Harrison Ford and an extra budget, it could have pushed through. But there's too much, I think, going on at the box office that it didn't survive. And that's it. But interestingly,
now that you said it came out in the same period as Con Air, did you really think a CGI like monster is going to compare to Nicolas Cage's magnificent mane,
his prime,
in that film, that mullet?
And there is a cut, like a PG-13 or 12 rated cut, but it's 30 minutes shorter because they've had to cut out all the violence. So so don't watch it on TV because it would be rubbish.
It reminds me of the time that the Tremors PG cut that's always on Sci-Fi. It's just like it's like.
But sometimes people, that's all they see and that's all they know. I remember watching Die Hard with a Vengeance on TV, and they cut like a whole 20-30 minute scene out, and I didn't know it was in it until I watched it on DVD. I was like, oh, there's this whole extra story going on.
Mm-hmm. Or if you grew up with protective parents during the days of VHS, there were so many movies that I watched where my dad would record it off TV, press stop, watch a bit, then record again. So I would watch my dad's cuts of movies, and it wasn't until I was a lot older where I rewatched Clash of the Titans, and I was like, shit, there's a whole kind of 15-minute bit with Medusa. I never saw Medusa, and the whole thing was attacking.
I thought you were going to talk about the bit at the start about Clash of the Titans.
That actually is freakier in a way, but my dad decided, you know what, from the moment they get onto the boat and kind of go into the area of the dead with the dogs and Medusa, and then up until after when that little bag of Medusa's head gets slashed by, I've forgotten his name, Calibos, and then those little scorpions pop out and then kill Perseus's best friend. I watched it as a kid and was like, hey, where's his best friend? Where is he? And I didn't know you'd killed. And then I watched Clash of the Titans as a kid, as a grown-up, and I'm like, wow.
So did they cut the bit where he uses the Medusa head to on the Kraken's stone because there's a separate head?
No, my dad didn't cut that. No.
Okay, it's just the Kraken just magically just turns into stone.
No, I just kept saying to my dad, where did you get that head from? Different version of the film.
Nah, fair enough.
There you go.
You don't question it because
okay.
Parents tell you.
Yeah, let's wrap this up.
Okay, before we finish on this film, I have to say one thing. That originally, this was to be a King Kong prequel. I don't know if you came across that, but so the ending was due to set up a new King Kong film that Stephen Sommers would write and direct to go alongside Godzilla. Perhaps we would have had a Godzilla vs. Kong earlier had that happened, but it for whatever reason.
Who made this film? The distributors.
New Line? Was it New Line?
New Line.
Mm.
New Line Cinema. Yeah.
I'm just wondering how that works. I'm sure that at the time Universal was the rights holders to King Kong, so I don't know.
Well, this film was meant to end on Skull Island.
Really?
And so, if you remember the ending, Alex.
Oh, I do. And the ending, I know this is slightly back to front, but the ending reminds me of the end of Resident Evil 4. Or rather, Resident Evil 4 ending reminds me of this film, because you've got the absolute classic tropey speedboat kind of like waves behind as things are blowing up, and you've got the main guy on a speedboat just leaving, and then explosion. And that's how Resident Evil 4 ends. That's what I mean, Connor. This film, there are times when it's so violent, you're like, wow, this is quite a R-rated film. Then there are other times where you're like, this is a really cheesy film. This is really cheesy. The tone is all over the place.
I'm still taken aback by that King Kong thing, if I'm honest. But,
the King Kong is at the end of this film, but you don't actually see him.
Yeah. It's just like in real life, King Kong is make-believe.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just had to share that little morsel of information because I thought it was fascinating that we nearly had a King Kong film.
Well, before I forget, I do have something that I've been meaning to share with the group for a while on the podcast. So I do have an if nothing else. If I could share it with you now.
Yeah.
So, did you ever see the Twilight Zone?
The original or the film?
Either.
I've seen bits of the original Twilight Zone.
Yeah, say bits.
All right,
I've seen
cool.
bits.
So, same, but I watched just one single episode of the remake, which was in 2019, which I don't know how well it was received, but the reason why I mention it is because there was an episode that I'm just bringing up in season 2 now, and I've got it. Okay, so it was episode 16, and the episode in the Twilight Zone is just called 8, and it was directed by Jordan Peele, who
Nice.
has brought us many good films. And I don't want to spoil it because I went into this 1 hour episode kind of completely blind, and it was very exciting. Just to kind of add apologies if this is a bit juttery at the end, folks. So yeah, my kind of, if nothing else, is an episode. Team are basically attacked by this thing. It's an absolute rush of an hour. It's really scary. It's really sinister. It has a lot of the elements that I like of kind of, a deep sea diving horror. But it's a serious watch. It's not a comedy. It doesn't try to be fun or silly. It's a hard horror watch, but it's great. It's really worth seeing. Connor, if nothing else.
If nothing else, go actually see Deep Rising because I haven't. but if nothing else, go order the Godzilla 1973, which is currently available in the Godzilla store. You can buy it through Buy as well as the Megalon and Jaguar figures.
Hey.
Paul, if nothing else.
So if nothing else, obviously I'd say watch Deep Rising. Just know what you're getting in for. It's good fun. Watch Mighty Max. I'm gonna have to watch another episode now because it was a good throwback, and we do love the 90s, or I love the 90s. And I guess we were talking about it before. I think Sliver's a really good shout because that is also I think it's R-rated, tongue-in-cheek.
It's very R-rated.
Yeah, it's just ridiculous fun, and it's got Nathan Fillion, who's awesome. So yeah, check that out.
James Gunn, early James Gunn.
It is, isn't it? Yeah, early James Gunn.
All Guardians of the Galaxy and all of kind of that.
That's right.
Fame. Early James Gunn, who kind of cut his teeth on trauma.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, very kind of icky horror.
Let's just say, if you like Guardians of the Galaxy, Romeo and Juliet's probably not your cup of tea. I'll just say that.
Yeah. Okay. Signing off, gentlemen.
Okay. Yeah. Until next time, keep it kaiju.
Welcome back to Kaiju Curry House, episode 123. And we are still talking about I've forgot what the name of the film is. Well done, Connor.
It's called Deep Rising, Connor. Have you not been paying attention?
Deep Rising. Yeah, okay. But there's your start to your episode, or break even. So